Hey, this is Theater Girl 1018, and today I am going over what I am reading for the Booktube readathon. And I'm really excited for the Booktube readathon, but here's a couple things. Number one, I only have 6 days, unlike everybody else, because on Sunday, not this Sunday, but on the last day of the Booktube readathon, I am leaving for Sleepaway Summer Camp in New Jersey, theater camp. So I have to be there, and I cannot be reading all that day because I have to drive to Jersey from Long Island. I have to check in, I have to get my dormo ready, and then that night, I begin classes. It's really crazy. Also, I don't like reading books in a day. I don't like reading books that I've never read in a day, because it usually takes me a week to read a book under 500 pages and 2 weeks to read like 500 to 700. So, excuse me. I'm really excited about the Booktube readathon, but I don't want to read these books in a day because I feel like if it's a book you're really excited about reading, you're all pumped, boom, it's over, and then you haven't got a chance to savor it, and that's it. You can't go back and you can't go back and read the book as if you have never read it. It's done. So what I'm going to do is I'm not really going to be following the challenges except for read 300 pages a day. I do what I want. And I'm going to be doing the readathon all with rereading books. And I think that's okay because the real spirit of the readathon is to just read as much as you possibly can. So, before we begin, this is my bookshelf. I actually just redid it the other day. Before this I had like these books stacked vertically up here. Up here I have movies. And down on my first shelf I have Once Upon a Time Reawakened to I Am Number 4. The Lost Files. And you've got a little mermaid statue that I painted. My books are organized alphabetically. So then on the next shelf, I have Gossamer to The Mark of Athena. And then on my last shelf, well, not my last shelf, but the last shelf with books on it currently, I have Sorcerer's Stone to The Queen of Kentucky. So, now I have my game plan of what I'm going to be reading from Monday to Saturday. Because remember, I only have until Saturday. Pooh, huh? Okay. So, the first book that I'm going to be reading, this is going to be Monday, Kingdom Keeper's Dark Passage, which is the 6th book in the Kingdom Keeper series by Ridley Pearson. Now, this book came out April 2nd, and I had been waiting a year for it. And this was the first book that I actually had to wait a full year for, because all the other series I read, either all the books were out when I started reading the series, or when I finished the most current book, and there was only a few months left of wait. That's what happened when I finished Kingdom Keepers 4. There was only about a half a year left until Kingdom Keepers 5 came out. Maybe less. But this was the first book that I had to wait a full year for, and it was really hard for me, and especially because the 5th book ended in a huge cliffhanger. But, so this book came out April 2nd. I read it in a week, exactly a week actually. I kind of zoomed through it, and I don't remember a lot of the little details, so this was my favorite book in the series so far. It was amazing, and even if I did remember all the details, I would want to reread this book. So on Tuesday, I'm going to move on to 2 small books rather than 1 bigger book, because both of these books that I want to reread are under 300 pages, and that's not the goal, is it? So the first book that I'm going to be rereading on Tuesday, Cross My Heart, Hope to Die by Sarah Shepard. Now, this came out in February. Again, don't remember a lot of the small details, but I love the Lion Game series, and yes, I have tried reading the first Pretty Little Liars book, and no, I did not like it. I'm not sure when the next and supposedly last Lion Game book comes out. It's probably very soon, considering that these books come out every half year, and this is book 5. Book 4 came out last July, and before that, and this book came out in February, so I'm assuming the next book will come out in July. So, it's July, so it's coming out soon. Now, I want to refresh myself before I read the last book, so this is what I'm reading on Tuesday. Also, another book I'm going to be trying to read on Tuesday, The Fairest of Them All by Serena Valentino. Now, this book was really awesome. It really touched my heart, and really, it was a really interesting second take on the Evil Queen's backstory, what it might be. Because, I say second take because I had already watched the Evil Queen episode of Once Upon a Time when I read this book. So I already had a take on what the Evil Queen story might be. But then I read this, and it was suggested to me by an online friend, and I really loved this book. It touched my heart, and it really gave you some insight into who the Evil Queen might have been, and that she might have actually been a character that you ended up falling in love with, which I did. Okay, so, moving on to Wednesday, we're going back to big books. And on Wednesday, I'm going to be rereading The Mark of Athena. Now, again, I remember I read this in December, and so it's more appropriate that I forgot a lot of the small details. And House of Hades finally comes out in October. I was right on that one. House of Hades finally comes out in October, and I'm really, really excited about it, and I can't wait, and I want to refresh. So Mark of Athena, so far my favorite Heroes of Olympus book, awesome, yes, Persebeth, need to reread and cry. It's gonna be okay, guys. No, it's not. Okay, on Thursday we're gonna slow it down so I don't have to challenge myself to read a big book in a day again. And Thursday I'm going to be attempting to reread Catching Fire. I read this, I'm actually not sure. I read this in March of 2012, so I definitely need a refresher before the movie comes out this November, which I am pumped for. Again, don't remember a lot of the small details. I've been planning to do this for a long time. As you can see, I've already reread like the first 2 chapters. I did that in a couple of reading in the shower sessions. Yes, I read in the shower, and I learned how from one of my favorite booktubers. Her name's Christine. Link to her channel is in the doobly-doo. Yes, I'm a nerd fighter. Deal with it. So, Catching Fire, refresh before the movie, awesome, yes. Been planning to do this for a long time, need to. So I guess I'm kind of completing the challenge there. Read a book that's been on your shelf forever, like you're planning. I've been planning to reread it forever. I guess that counts for something. So on Friday, I'm moving on to Friday, I'm going on to another big book, and that is going to be Insurgent by Veronica Roth. Now, actually, what the funny thing is, I read Divergent last summer, and I read Insurgent in, like, September, and I remember more from Divergent than I do from Insurgent. So, if that's crazy at all. But I don't remember a lot of the small details. I remember a good amount, but with Allegiant coming out in September, I believe, maybe October, not sure, really need to refresh on Insurgent. So, that will be Friday's read. And finally, ending my journey in the Booktubeathon, we move on to Saturday, when I am going to be rereading, not you, good, The Queen of Kentucky by Alicia Whittaker. I read this book a long time ago. I read it, this was when I really first started getting into teen fiction, February of 2012. I like realistic fiction. I like to slow down with realistic fiction sometimes. I really loved this book. It was really touching and really exciting and intense at times too. That's what I really love from a realistic fiction book, that it can keep me on the edge of my seat just like an adventure book, but it can still be slow paced and touching at the same time. And really heartwarming story about a girl who's about my age now. She was older than me when I read the book last year, but yeah. Okay. So, The Queen of Kentucky. And that will be my journey on the Booktube readathon. Now, there's some other books that maybe I will reread if I have the time, but I doubt it. So, here we go. One book that I might reread if I have the time is Flipped. I will set this aside for Thursday with Catching Fire. I really loved Flipped. It was actually on the summer one of the options for the summer reading list when I was going into 7th grade. But I didn't choose it. I chose another book, which we will get to later. I read Flipped last year when I was in 8th grade. It was, yes, I'm going to be a sophomore in the fall. Hello. It was touching. It was nice. It was funny. And so maybe I'll reread that, just for fun. So, next book I might reread if I have the time. Speaking of my 7th grade summer reading list, Gossamer by Lois Lowry. Now, I read this book for summer reading when I was going into 7th grade. Nice story, cute, might reread it. Also, another Lois Lowry book that I might reread if I have the time, Gathering Blue, which was my summer reading going into 8th grade. Yay! So, again, companion to The Giver, which I loved reading it in 7th grade in English class. Gathering Blue, awesome book, yeah. So, oh yeah, and the final book that I might reread, highly unlikely, The Fault in Our Stars. I read this in May. Of course it made me cry. If I really need a good cry one day, maybe I'll replace one of my books with this, or if I have the time, probably not replace one of the books. If I have the time, I'll reread this too. Fault in Our Stars. So that will be my journey on the Booktube readathon, which I have less time for than everyone else, and I'm doing it differently than everyone else. But hey, it's all about reading as much as you can, right? So, my Twitter is bookworm1018. You can follow me on that, where I will be doing updates on my Booktube readathon, possibly. Also, my Tumblr is kingdomkeepers365. Yes. Okay. Bye.